Hi there, it's Mark Palick, and I've got a very, very special guest with us today. His name is Rob. We'll call him Rob C. And Rob has been one of my best friends for a long time now, and I help him in an advisory role as well. And I thought it'd be really good for Rob to share some of Rob's story with you today, because his mom has dementia. And she's been battling that along with Rob and her family for a while now. And I thought Rob could get some really good insight to you all on having a mom who has dementia and some of his experiences of kind of dealing with that with his whole family. So Rob, I love you. Thanks for spending some time. Are you ready to get famous, first of all?
I appreciate the fame, but it's not necessary.
Okay, all right.
But thank you for the opportunity to let me share some of this, because I think it could be helpful and impactful for other people who are going through it or who may go through it.
Yeah, so in all seriousness, kind of tell us about how long your mom has had dementia and how, what happened in the beginning.
Yeah, I mean, she's had it, I'm going to say, diagnosed for 8 years, give or take now, and it's you don't know when officially it started, because things just start happening that you kind of scratch your head. Like, she would ask me a question that, like, when she had my Deep Creek property one year, and then like 6 months later she goes, "Hey, I heard you had a Deep Creek property, and I'd like to visit." And she was not diagnosed at that point, but that's when you start asking yourself some questions. How can she not remember that?
Yeah.
So that's how it started, and then it progressively got worse in terms of asking repetitive questions. And then you got to dive into and say, what's going on here? And then eventually we had her see a cognitive person or a doctor to officially get that diagnosis.
Yeah. So how has her kind of situation changed in the last 7 years? It's just deteriorating and kind of...
Yeah, the hard thing you hear every time like people know about it, it's like, hey, how's your mom doing? And the answer is not any better, right? Yeah. That's the common sense answer, because it doesn't get better. It gets worse. It progresses to, a greater degree of, a greater, deeper level of dementia, if you will. So if you're not there every day, it's like subtle. You see subtle changes, but like my dad's there every day, and we know what he's going through because he shares with us some of his challenges.
Yeah.
And like I might sit there and say, hey, it doesn't seem like it's getting any worse. It seems the same. And then he would tell you, oh, it's getting worse.
Right.
So the more time you spend with somebody like that, the more you see. So for those who are not with their loved ones at a higher frequency, you're not going to see the changes much, because we'll go out and I'll have friends or family members who say, hey, your mom sounds great. She looks like she's doing awesome.
Yeah.
And you don't know the deeper levels to what's going on, like under the roof, so to speak.
Right. So you mentioned your dad. So how has he done with all of this?
It's hard.
Expand on it? Yeah.
Yeah, what I would say is, on the outside, he would tell you he's doing okay, but every now and then you know that the spouse or the partner, whatever, is struggling internally.
Yeah.
And I would say to the siblings or the children of a parent who is the caregiver for somebody who has dementia, is you're not going to get the total truth from that person, because sometimes there's a matter of pride where they don't want to say, hey, I'm struggling. There's the thing where they might feel inadequate, like I'm not good enough to take care of my wife or my spouse. But every now and then he opens up. Every now and then you get an idea as to, okay, he's struggling, or there's a challenge here that we need to deal with. And it's not just the cognitive challenges of the spouse or the caregiver. It's also, there's daily living activities that deteriorate as well.
Yeah.
Whether are they bathing every so often, are they taking their pills when they're supposed to take them, are they eating correctly? And it can be a challenge.
Yeah.
And thank God I have 3 sisters that put a lot of time and effort into the caregiving, where they're there helping her with those issues with daily living.
Yeah, so speaking of that, can you talk to us about how the intricacies of, like, my will be 78 this year, and I have 2 other sisters, and we all bring different emotions, so shall we say, to the table. How has that been for you? Because this guy's got the hugest family in Baltimore. How does that gone for you and your family, if you don't mind?
No, it can be a challenge. So I have 6 brothers and sisters, 3 brothers, 3 sisters, and myself, so it's 7 of us. And the truth of the matter is we always don't see eye to eye. And so you have to respect each other's viewpoints.
So what would you tell somebody as far as like how they should start when they think that something's not quite right, to get to a point where I know recently you had somebody come in, a resource that helped you and your family kind of develop a plan of care. So in other words, I know there's a lot of time in between there, but can you express some of the things that people might want or need to think about as it relates to making sure mom's fine, you know?
Yeah, there's several things. One, obviously, let's go from the top, the cost, right?
Yeah.
So then, do you have a long-term care plan in place, or are you self-insured enough that you can afford one? You know the budget.
Yeah.
Know the budget. And so you got to know what the cost is. You want to know, like, do you want to be somewhere close by? So, like, for instance, we had this professional come in, sit down and talk with my dad. How far do you, what's the area, how far do you want to go? And my dad was like, close by. He wants to close by. So you got to know, you got to plan that out. Where do you want to be? Because when you're in assisted living, you can visit. It's not like it's jail.
Right.
But you can visit, and you can actually take the person out and go for a ride, go have lunch or something to that effect. So you want to. It's a cost thing. It's a geographic thing, and it's also a timing thing. When's the right time? Because we haven't experienced the part where you let go yet.
Yeah.
Right. And I know, and I'm sure there's people out there that might see this and have experienced it. It's not going to be a pretty day.
So speaking of that, I know that you're utilized a person to help you kind of develop a plan of care or process. And you had really good things to say about that person. Can you talk about that?
Sure.
And how that works?
Sure, yeah. So we hired this woman, her name is Ellen Pervicone, and she's a consultant for people who are going through this process. She came in, she sat down with myself, my sister, and my dad.
Yeah.
And very, very empathetic and understanding of the feelings of the caregiver, being my dad in this case, and talking about what to expect, what to do, what to look for. So again, she asked for the geographic piece where you want to be there, but her job is to know the places, know the budget.
Mm-hmm.
So if the budget's $7,000 a month, you're not looking at a place that costs $12,000 a month, right?
Yeah.
So it's a budgetary thing where she understands what finances are available, and then it's also like the quality of the place that you're researching to possibly go to. For instance, you want to know that these people are taking care of your mom or your dad in terms of, okay, a dementia person doesn't know they haven't gone to the bathroom in 6 hours.
Yeah.
So instead of saying, do you need to go to the bathroom? Let's go to the bathroom, right? So are they going to be proactive in that way? So that you want to make sure that the people in the environment or the community they're in, how they're going to approach and communicate with the patient.
Yeah.
Are there meds going to be taken on time? Are there activities that they can be involved in? Because you don't want them just to sit there in a chair and slobber and be a nothing
Right.
for the day or on a daily basis. So it's just how active are these communities? Are they, if they're not active, is there a way for us to, are the finances there, and is there a way for us to be able to go, hey mom, I'm going to pick you up tomorrow from the place you're staying, and we're going to go have lunch. We're going to take you to Town Square, adult daycare, something to that effect.
Yeah. So, and kind of in closing, so some of you may be the daughter or the son, somebody might be the mom or the dad. So is there any other advice that you can give to all the folks like listening to this that might help them?
Yeah, I think the first thing is there's a level of patience and understanding that you have to have, because it's not the patient's or the person's fault. And I remember when it first started, I would get irritated and annoyed. Like, Mom, you just asked that. You asked that 3 times, and that's not what they need to hear. So it's almost like you have to get really skilled at going along with them.
Yeah.
Going along with them, right? And then I think the biggest thing is, and I'm almost embarrassed to say this to some extent, when somebody's got that dementia or Alzheimer's and they're constantly repeating themselves and can't remember things, sometimes you may say to yourself, why have a conversation? Because they're not going to remember it anyway. And I would tell you this, it's important to be in the moment, because even though they can't remember, they can feel in the moment the love. They can feel in the moment the attention, and they can acknowledge it in that moment, even though 5 minutes from now they're not going to remember it. So I think it's important to learn to live in the moment.
Yeah. Rob, I appreciate your discussion today. I'm sure you helped a lot of people. Thanks for being honest. I love you with all my heart.
Too.
We'll see you again soon. Thank you.